Ever wondered what to do if you lose your CPL? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to CPL Class Part 2 with Ted Wright. In this video, we're going to be answering that question and a whole lot more about concealed pistol licenses. We will be addressing questions like, what happens if your CPL goes missing? Can you use your CPL in different states? What about carrying in federal buildings or at public events? We'll also delve into the nuances of brandishing versus legally carrying a concealed firearm, and discuss whether your boss can stop you from carrying at work. We'll also explore the restrictions on carrying in places like schools, hospitals, courthouses, and even state parks. And yes, we'll talk about what pistol-free zone means in Michigan, so buckle up and get ready to have your questions answered. Let's dive right into your frequently asked questions about CPL. So, what should you do if you lose your CPL, you might be asking? It's a situation none of us want to find ourselves in, but it's important to be prepared. First and foremost, you should report the loss to your local law enforcement agency. They'll be able to document the situation and help prevent any potential misuse of your lost CPL. Next, you'll need to request a replacement from the authority that issued your original CPL. This process may vary depending on your location, but typically involves filling out a form and paying a small fee. It's essential to take this step promptly to ensure you're still able to legally carry concealed. In the meantime, remember to exercise caution and refrain from carrying concealed without your CPL. It's important to stay on the right side of the law, even when circumstances are less than ideal. Remember, always keep your CPL in a safe place. Can you use your CPL in other states? And does Michigan have reciprocity with other states for CPLs? These are common queries that often come up in the world of concealed carry permits or CPLs. To answer these questions, we first need to understand the concept of reciprocity. In simple terms, reciprocity is an agreement between two or more states to recognize each other's concealed carry permits. It's like a mutual understanding among the states that your right to carry doesn't cease at your state border. Now, does Michigan have reciprocity with other states for CPLs? The answer is a resounding yes. Michigan's CPL is recognized in a multitude of states across the nation. However, it's crucial to note that these agreements are not universally reciprocal. Some states may recognize Michigan's CPL, but Michigan may not necessarily recognize theirs. This is where the term reciprocal agreements comes in. These are specific agreements between states where both parties have agreed to recognize each other's CPLs. It's sort of a diplomatic handshake between states, ensuring that the rights of their respective citizens are respected when they cross state lines. However, the list of states that recognize Michigan's CPL is not set in stone. It can change based on legislative decisions, so it's always a good idea to stay updated. This is especially important if you're planning to travel with your firearm. One thing to remember is that even if a state recognizes your CPL, you must still abide by their specific concealed carry laws. Every state has its own set of rules and regulations when it comes to carrying concealed firearms. Some might have stricter laws, while others may be more lenient. In conclusion, yes, you can use your CPL in other states, provided that those states have a reciprocity agreement with Michigan. However, it's not a carte blanche to carry your firearm anywhere without regard to the specific laws of the state you're visiting. Always check the CPL laws in the state you're visiting. After all, being a responsible gun owner isn't just about knowing how to use your firearm, it's also about understanding and respecting the laws that govern its use. Are there places where you can't carry, even with a valid CPL? Now that's a question we must address. For starters, the right to carry a concealed pistol is not absolute. It comes with its own set of rules and regulations. For instance, federal buildings are generally off-limits for concealed carry. This includes post offices, courthouses, and other government-owned properties. It's crucial to remember that federal law trumps state law. So even if you are in a state that recognizes your permit, these restrictions still apply. Moving on to educational institutions, restrictions vary. Most states, Michigan included, prohibit the carrying of concealed weapons on K-12 school grounds unless you have explicit permission. College campuses also often have their own set of rules. It's not uncommon for universities to have policies against carrying firearms on their premises, even if you have a CPL. So it's always a good idea to check with the institution's policy before stepping foot on the campus with your concealed firearm. Public events or gatherings too can have restrictions. This could include concerts, fairs or parades. Sometimes it's not the event itself but the location that imposes the restriction. For instance, if a public event is being held at a school or a government building, then the restrictions applicable to those places would apply. Finally, let's touch upon public transportation. Many states have laws against carrying concealed firearms on public transportation systems, including buses, trains, and subways. In Michigan, for instance, it's illegal to carry a concealed firearm on a commercial bus. But, like with most things, there are exceptions and nuances to these laws, so it's always best to do your research before you travel. In conclusion, while a CPL gives you the right to carry a concealed pistol, it doesn't grant unrestricted access to all places. It's of utmost importance to be aware of and respect the laws and regulations of the place you're in. Remember, the goal is to ensure everyone's safety, yours included. So always respect the laws and regulations of the place you're in. Can you carry at work or in a church with a valid CPL? This question often pops up in discussions about concealed carry laws. Let's start with the workplace. It's important to understand that private employers have the right to establish their own rules regarding firearms on their premises. This means that even if you have a valid concealed pistol license or CPL, your employer can still prohibit you from carrying at work. In many cases, businesses establish these rules to ensure a safe and comfortable environment for all employees. So, even if you disagree with such restrictions, it's crucial to respect them. After all, carrying a concealed firearm is a responsibility, not just a right. Now, let's move on to religious institutions. In many states, it's legal to carry a concealed firearm in a church, synagogue, mosque, or other places of worship. However, this doesn't mean it's always permitted. Some religious institutions may have their own rules or policies that prohibit firearms. Additionally, some states require explicit permission from the religious institution before you can legally carry on their premises. That being said, it's not uncommon for places of worship to encourage members to carry, particularly for those who are trained and licensed. This is often seen as a means of ensuring the safety of the congregation, especially in light of recent incidents of violence at religious institutions. In both of these situations, at work or in a religious institution, the key takeaway is this: each place has the right to set its own rules regarding firearms. As a responsible gun owner, it's your duty to respect these rules and to always be aware of the laws in your area. So, before you decide to carry your firearm to work or to your place of worship, make sure you're familiar with their respective policies. When in doubt, it's always better to ask for permission rather than forgiveness. Remember, it's essential to know the laws and respect the rules of the places you frequent. What about carrying in state parks, wildlife areas, hospitals, courthouses, hotels, casinos, libraries, and private businesses? Now that's a question that covers a lot of ground, quite literally. Let's start with state parks and wildlife areas. In many jurisdictions, it's perfectly legal to carry a concealed pistol in these spaces as long as you're not in a designated pistol-free zone. These zones are typically marked with signage or included in the area's regulations. So it's always a good idea to do your homework before you go. On to hospitals and courthouses. These are generally considered sensitive areas, and many have strict rules against carrying firearms, whether concealed or not. Again, it's crucial to check the specific regulations of the facility. The same goes for hotels and casinos, as these private businesses can set their own policies regarding firearms on their premises. Libraries as public facilities often fall under local or state law when it comes to carrying concealed firearms. Some may be designated as pistol-free zones, while others may allow concealed carry. It's always worth checking with the library or consulting local regulations. Private businesses that are open to the public can be a bit of a grey area. Some may welcome concealed carry, while others may strictly prohibit firearms. You may see signs posted at the entrance, or you may need to ask the business owner or manager about their policy. Now, let's talk about pistol-free zones. These are areas where carrying a concealed pistol is specifically prohibited, regardless of whether you have a valid CPL. They're often established for safety reasons and can include places like schools, government buildings, and others we've mentioned, like hospitals and courthouses. Violating these zones can lead to serious penalties, so always be aware of them. In conclusion, the rules for carrying in public and private spaces can vary widely, not just from state to state, but from place to place within the same city or town. Always be sure to check the specific regulations of the area you're in before you decide to carry. Always be aware of the laws and restrictions in different locations, because when it comes to carrying concealed, knowledge is your best defense. Can you carry while hunting or fishing? And what about in public transportation vehicles? These are common questions that come up when discussing concealed carry laws. In many places, there are specific rules about carrying while hunting or fishing. Some states allow concealed carry during these activities, while others have restrictions. For example, some jurisdictions require that firearms be unloaded and stored separately from ammunition during transport to and from hunting or fishing locations. Others may prohibit the use of firearms for hunting certain species. Always check with your local Department of Natural Resources or similar agency to understand the specific rules in your area. Now, let's discuss public transportation. This is a bit of a complex issue as many factors come into play. Federal law does not prohibit the carrying of firearms in public transportation vehicles, but individual states, cities and transportation agencies may have their own restrictions. Some may completely prohibit firearms on their vehicles, while others may allow concealed carry but prohibit open carry. It's crucial to understand the specific laws and regulations for your local public transportation system before you decide to carry on a bus, train, or other public vehicle. Remember, the goal of carrying a concealed firearm is to protect yourself and your loved ones. However, it's essential to respect the rights and safety of others in the process. This is especially important in public spaces like transportation vehicles, where many people are in close proximity. In summary, while it's generally legal to carry while hunting or fishing and on public transportation, there can be specific rules and restrictions that you need to follow. Always do your homework and understand the laws in your area. Don't be afraid to reach out to local agencies or legal professionals if you have questions. And above all, remember that carrying a firearm is a great responsibility. It's not just about your rights, but also about the safety and well-being of those around you. So, always follow the laws when carrying while engaging in these activities. We've covered a lot today, haven't we? It's been a journey indeed, as we delved into the intricate world of CPLs, concealed pistol licenses. Let's take a moment to summarize the key points we've discussed, so you can better navigate these waters. We began by addressing the question of what to do if you lose your CPL. The answer, simply put, is to report the loss immediately and initiate the process for a replacement. Be aware that negligence could result in penalties. Next, we tackled the concept of reciprocity. This refers to the acceptance of your Michigan CPL by other states. While many states do recognize Michigan's CPL, it's always wise to check the specifics before you travel. We then moved on to the restrictions on carrying in certain places. Federal buildings, schools, colleges, and public gatherings all have particular rules that need to be observed. The key is to know the laws specific to each location. Workplaces and religious institutions also have their own sets of regulations. While you might have a valid CPL, your employer or the institution may have policies that restrict carrying a concealed firearm. We also discussed carrying in public and private spaces. State parks, wildlife areas, hospitals, courthouses, hotels, and even casinos each have their unique rules. The same applies to public libraries and businesses open to the public. Lastly, the laws about carrying while hunting, fishing, and in public transportation were discussed. Each activity and location has its unique laws, and it's crucial to be familiar with these to avoid any legal entanglements. We've also touched on the concept of brandishing versus legally carrying a concealed firearm, the duty to inform law enforcement, the definition of a pistol-free zone, and the penalties for carrying in such a zone. In conclusion, owning a CPL is a responsibility that requires knowledge and understanding of the laws. Remember, it's always better to be informed than to be caught off guard. Stay safe, everyone.